Hey everyone, it's Dale, and today we're going to talk about social media mining. And you heard J.S. Stansel talk a lot about social listening. This is kind of an offshoot of that, and both of these are equally important and equally related to data. But we're going to talk first about social media mining and how we get information from users and what we then do with that information. And social media are a gold mine when it comes to data and user preferences. So it's incredibly valuable for brands, for journalists, for companies, and even for just you and your own personal social media use. So let's start first with a really quick definition. So you're probably thinking, well, what is social media mining? Here's the academic definition. It is the process of representing, analyzing, and extracting actionable patterns from social media data. Mining social media data is the task of mining user-generated content with social relations. So a couple of key points there. Let me translate that to English. That actionable patterns is really important because that means you can then do something with these data. So we'll talk about that here in just a second. And then that user-generated content with social relations, that's just a fancy way of saying stuff people do on social. So mining social media data is the task of mining all the stuff we do on social. And when we talk about all the stuff we do on social, these numbers change all the time. Here's the latest graphic that I could find. I'm going to give you like 30 seconds just to read through all this stuff. I'll give you a couple of my favorites. This one down here in the YouTube section, that more than 300 hours of video are uploaded every 60 seconds on YouTube, kind of is insane to me. More than 2 million Google searches, 3 million Facebook likes, more than 3 million shares. We'll talk about WhatsApp later in the semester. But 44 million messages processed every 60 seconds. So I'll give you a second here just to go over these, but you get a sense of all of the data that we have when it comes to social media. Okay, so what does all that mean, right? We have all these user-generated content on social spheres, as the academics were calling it. What does all that mean for us? Well, here's what it means from a social media marketer's perspective. Every time someone does something like this, we are getting information about them. So it depends on how in-depth you want to go with that information, but this is all available to us, or a lot of it is available to us. And then if we choose to use it correctly, we can make those actionable patterns and affect how we then use social or try to reach our users based on what they're telling us with the way they interact with our own content. So here's one more quick burst from a blog that I found that I really enjoy. This little paragraph here. It says, most brands only start tracking consumer behavior once they visit the corporate website or purchase an item in store. Social data allows marketers to understand their target consumer earlier in the funnel, potentially even before they've interacted with the brand, and use that information to win more business. So if you stop and think about that, again, let's kind of put that into English. You know, we used to start tracking everyone after they would already walk in the door. We'd get their phone number, we'd get their email address, we'd get their address. Now we do that way earlier, and we can build that brand attraction or that commitment to the brand to where we might be able to make the sale before people even know they need to make a sale, or we might get them to want our content before they even know that they're even interested in us. So there are a lot of things we can do with these data if used correctly. So what types of things are we talking about in terms of targeting or in terms of the social data that we have on people? Here's a behind-the-scenes look of a Facebook ad campaign. We'll get more into this in our Facebook discussions in the coming weeks. But when you go in and do an ad on Facebook, you can get really targeted. So here are just some of the examples. So you can see here I've selected that I want only people in San Marcos in a 25-mile surrounding area. I can go in and change that to just San Marcos. I can make it 10 miles out. I can make it 50 miles out. But that's a pretty decent range of the San Marcos area. I can go in and change the age. I can make it, if I just want to reach college students, I could change that range from 18 to 23 or 24. If I just wanted 18 to 24-year-old women to see the post, I could do that. If we're doing something, for instance, with an international office, we could go in and only select people who speak Chinese in San Marcos. So there are all these things. You get an idea over on the right-hand side of what the reach would be like. If you see down at the bottom, anything over 100,000 is considered a good, reasonable reach. So you can see we'd be fine in that. The more targeted you get, if I picked San Marcos and no surrounding area, 18 to 19-year-old women who speak, I'm blanking, German, my reach is going to be very, very tiny, and the chances of me actually getting to them is very slim. So you don't want your reach to be so targeted that you're not going to get anyone. You do want to broaden that a little bit, but we do have a lot of these options. So here's even more that we can do. Facebook can let you pick people who are engaged, married, in a relationship, single. What are they interested in? So for instance, if we're doing something with Texas State University, we would probably want to select Texas State University as one of their interests. We can select behaviors. Are they homeowners? Are they renters? All of this information Facebook has on us. And stop and think for a second of how Facebook gets this information. It gets this information because we willingly give it to Facebook. When you change your status update, Facebook now knows that you're in a relationship. When you go in and like pages that relate to Texas State University, Facebook now knows that you are interested in Texas State University. If you travel a lot, if you check in at a lot of different locations around the country or around the world, Facebook knows that you're a frequent traveler. If you talk about your new home or you talk about your apartment, Facebook knows whether you're renting or owning a home. So again, this is all information that we're giving Facebook voluntarily that Facebook can then turn around and use to make money off of. But again, you signed up for it. It's all on the up and up. You clicked on that agree, the agreement on the user agreement. So it's not like Facebook's doing anything wrong or illegal. Like, this is Facebook's platform. And so it has the information that you willingly give it. Now, sometimes this information isn't totally accurate. You might know friends or you might yourself have done this. You never really changed your city where you live to San Marcos. You might still have Houston or Dallas or wherever you're from. So Facebook doesn't quite know that you're in San Marcos at that point. But little things like that, those are the outliers. Most people have correct information there. And so Facebook has a pretty good idea. Facebook, more than any other social network, has a really good idea of who you are, what you're interested, what you like to do. And that helps advertisers reach a very specific audience. But wait, there's more. We can also look at data from post performance. So it's not just about targeting people or ads. We can also get data from our posts and figure out if they're working or if we're reaching our audience, or can we change this? What can we do differently? So here's an example of what Facebook Analytics, or they're called Facebook Insights, look like. This is just one of them. So if you look, that first post, the type, that means it was a link post, meaning we shared a native link. You can see the reach was 86 and we only had one engagement, which would be a click on the link, and you can see we had 0 likes, comments, or shares. Then go down to the next one. We had an image post. It had 4 times the reach and a lot more engagement. So you will start to see trends like this. Okay, hey, our text posts and our link posts are not doing really well. We need to focus more on images. Or you might have a situation where your video posts are doing insanely well, and you might want to start putting more effort into video. So these are all actionable patterns that we can take from the data. JS showed us the whale, the Facebook whale, which is the time that most of your users are online. It isn't a fail-proof way of foolproof way of getting those posts in front of your audience, but if you have an audience that is up in the late afternoon and early evening, you might want to post at that time. You might not want to post at 8 a.m. because that's when you get to the office, and when you post, you might want to go ahead and set it to post at 4 in the afternoon and monitor it. We also know what day our audience is online. So a lot of people and a lot of brands especially only post Monday through Friday because that's when their social media team is in the office. But if you look at something like this particular client, it's almost even all the way across the board. And in fact, I mean, Sunday and Saturday are the lowest days, but it is by a very, very slim margin. And so this might be a situation where you want to go to a 7-day-a-week posting schedule because people are using Facebook, that your audience is using Facebook on a on a daily basis throughout the week. This will be different for every client, as JS mentioned in class, or at least in one of the classes. Texas State's users drop off on Saturday and Sunday, as you would probably expect, so they post only Monday through Friday. But on a game day, on a Saturday, there might be more posts, so the Texas State accounts might post on Saturday. Again, this is all data provided to you by Facebook that you'll be able to share with the client and help form strategies moving forward. We also can get a lot of demographic information about the users themselves. So not just, are they interested in certain things, or do they speak certain languages? Are they homeowners or renters? All of that stuff. That's all demographic information technically, but this is like the hardcore demographic stuff. So Facebook can tell you whether your fans are men, women, their age, what country are they in, what city are they in, what language they speak. I mentioned that one. This becomes important because if you have a client that is based in San Antonio or in San Marcos, let's use San Marcos as an example. If you have a client that's based in San Marcos and it's a local business and the majority of your fans are from Russia, you have a problem. That means you either bought fans or your site was hacked or spammed. So you've got some issues. So you can see here, this particular client, they have a lot of, not a lot, but they have some fans from Mexico. That's because that particular client does some business in Mexico, and we occasionally speak to clients in Mexico. So that's the reason for that. We have a lot of clients. We have a web developer of ours who lives in Russia and he works remotely. And so we oftentimes get a lot of web hits from Russia. So when we look at our Google Analytics, St. Petersburg, Russia always shows up very high, but that's because he's there checking his work. It's not because the site was spammed or anything like that. So again, if I was in San Marcos with a local business and I look at this and almost 2,000 of my fans, a big majority of them are from Houston, that would concern me because I'm a San Marcos business. I want mostly people from San Marcos. So it's good to keep track of this demographic information and know where your fan base is and who they are. I'll bring up another example. I have a client that really wanted to focus on women. And so when I went into their Facebook demographics, like 75% of their followers were men. So we were making these posts, or the client was making these posts before we came along, and they were making these posts targeting women, speaking directly to women, and yet there were very few women on their page. So we started a really specific ad campaign targeting women in San Antonio from age 25 to 54, and now that ratio is almost flipped. Now it's almost 75% women, and that's the audience they want. So it ended up working well for them, and that's the advantage of paying attention to these types of data. We also start to learn personal preferences. So I've talked about this already a little bit, but every time you go click like on something, whether it's a page, a post, a video, all of those things, you're giving Facebook information about what you like, your personal preferences. When you go and comment on something, you are giving Facebook information that you are interested in this information. You're interested in that type of content. Facebook pays attention to that. And every time you go and share something, sharing is probably the most important analytic, at least in my opinion, on Facebook, because that is the strongest signal of I want someone else to see this. It's not just, hey, I like this, or hey, I want to talk about this. It's I want all my friends to see this. And I think above all else, we'll talk about the algorithm, moving forward, but my strongest sense of the Facebook algorithm is content that can be shared a lot is going to be seen a lot. It just, it's going to be fed into the algorithm more and more. And BuzzFeed's probably the best example of that. BuzzFeed's content is made for sharing, and BuzzFeed is insanely popular. So, it's kind of one of those chicken and egg deals. But I would say the two play hand in hand together. Also, anytime you take a survey or answer a poll or anything like that, you are giving information that says what you care about. So just, not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm not trying to scare you from interacting or engaging with social. I think we should. Just know what's happening with that information. More importantly, know how we then, as marketers or journalists or however we're using social, we can then use that information to not only produce better content, but also to possibly reach a better audience and reach more people. So that's important. So again, I don't want you to get scared and go home and beat your smartphone to death. Like, please don't do that. Everything is fine. Most of the time you won't even know this stuff is going on. You may not have even ever thought about it before. But now is the time for you to start thinking like a social media marketer. And we're going to assign Analytics Report 1 in the next day or so. And here's an example of a professional analytics report. Yours probably won't look like this because this is generated by a third-party platform that we'll talk about in a couple of weeks. But you can see we're going to have this same type of information on here. So we're going to show you some examples of good student analytic reports from this class that they've done in the past. And I have a pretty high standard for these analytics reports, so I expect you to put information in, or expect you to put the effort in. These are each worth like 5% of your grade, so it's a big chunk of your grade. And we'll go over the instructions in class, but I just wanted to give you an idea of what an analytics report looks like. And then, the whole idea behind these analytics reports is presenting these data, presenting that report to the actual client, and then helping develop that strategy moving forward of how can we best reach your audience, what type of content is working, what type of content is not working, when should you be posting, how often should you be posting. These are all questions that you should be able to start answering, or at least start having an idea of moving forward once we start to see the analytics from our clients. So that's it for social media mining. It's really important. The analytics will play a huge role in this class, so take them seriously. Get to know these analytics. I guarantee you it will help you find a job if you want to work in this field. Like I've mentioned in the past, we've had students who have gotten jobs or internships solely based on the analytics reports that they did for this class, so it's important. It's a valuable skill to learn, and I guarantee you it will help you moving forward.